This new agency will ensure that we confront the full range of threats from nation states, cyber criminals, and other malicious actors, of which there are many.
In 2018, President Trump signed legislation to fund the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, within the Department of Homeland Security. Its goal, to protect critical infrastructure, including the nation's election systems. The president named cybersecurity expert Christopher Krebs to be its director. Krebs had been serving within DHS at the time. Last month, just days before the election, Krebs told the NewsHour that CISA had come a long way.
We've just made remarkable progress. The evidence supports that. The security of these systems has improved, but most importantly, the resilience of the system has dramatically improved.
The consensus among elections officials and agencies across the government is that despite ongoing threats of disinformation, foreign interference, plus the pandemic, the 2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history.
Director Krebs deserves an enormous amount of credit for his efforts, for his leadership in this space.
Ben Hovland is chairman of the Youth Election Assistance Commission. He too was nominated by President Trump. Hovland's commission studies and helps disseminate election system best practices.
One of the things that makes working on election issues difficult from the national level is the decentralized nature of our elections. And Director Krebs, I think, did a great job empowering his team to recognize that the 50 states each run elections in their own unique way. And so it was important to listen, to hear what their needs were and try to provide that.
Dmitry Alperovich is a co-founder of the cybersecurity company CrowdStrike. He worked with Krebs to improve the capabilities of local election officials to detect and withstand cyber attacks.
Well, one of the things that Chris was very passionate about is getting instrumentation in state systems and local municipalities that are running actually these election systems so that we would know if they're being attacked by foreign actors or domestic actors. And we worked very hard in the private sector to help him gain that level of instrumentation so he would know, and the rest of the federal government would know if those systems are being attacked and would be able to respond accordingly.
Most Republicans on Capitol Hill chose not to comment on Krebs' firing, but a notable few were critical. Here's GOP Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois on CNN.
Chris Krebs said the election was secure. That's his job to say that. His job is to make sure that they're defending the elections. And of course, that is counter to what the president is trying to say. So I think that all feeds into why he's out there. And, there's like a loyalty purge going on in the last month in the White House.
And Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn.
It's the president's prerogative, but I think it just adds to the confusion and chaos. But we know that there were people that try to influence the election. And the irony is we've really done a much better job in 2018 and 2020.
Many believe Krebs was fired because of his agency's continuing effort to push back on false claims and rumors surrounding the election, some of which were created or repeated by President Trump. To fight disinformation, CISA ran this website called Rumor Control, batting down myths and lies about things like computer hacking or duplicate ballots or compromised voter rolls. But it was this joint statement, put out by CISA 6 days ago, that seemed to seal his fate. It read, "The November 3rd election was the most secure in American history." And later, in bold, directly contradicting the president and his lawyers, it read, "There is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised." Last night, the president tweeted, "The recent statement by Chris Krebs on the security of the 2020 election was highly inaccurate. Therefore, effective immediately, Chris Krebs has been terminated." So now, for a much broader look at this moment, both for the president and for the country, I'm joined now by Ron Suskind. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer and reporter. Ron, great to have you back on the NewsHour.
Great to be here, William.
You have been covering this president since the get-go. We have now seen Christopher Krebs fired. We've seen the leadership at the Pentagon lopped off and replaced. Help us understand how we ought to be seeing these events.
What you're seeing here is Trump executing his loyalty test that really has been active since around early 2018, where he really realized in a moment of clarity that loyalty was his key word. He had lots of officials who would not take an oath of personal loyalty to him. They took an oath to the Constitution. Trump accepted them at the beginning and then said, I got to get rid of all of them. Krebs and others and Esper are almost the last of that array of officials that were once populating different parts of the government that would not take this oath of loyalty to Trump and Trump's interests, however he defines them.
You recently wrote a terrific piece in the New York Times opinion piece that was based on a lot of deep reporting with several dozen former and current high-level administration officials. And the concern expressed was what happens after the election. And many of the things that you reported they worried about have come to pass. Sort of refusal to concede, allegations of fraud, lawsuits. I know you have continued to talk with many of those same people. What is it that they're worried about happening from this point forward?
Well, William really saw this period between the election and the inauguration as arguably the most dangerous time. And what they're specifically fearful of, most pointedly, is Trump activating his loyalists. Remember, he has an enormous army, if you will, of people deeply committed to him in a way that I don't think we've seen in modern political history, especially a core of the core, maybe half of the half. That's where much of their concern is focused. Trump has not been back meeting with them since the election. It's almost like lovers separated from one another. He will at some point, no one doubts that. And at which point you're going to see the nature of power that he possesses outside of that the Article 2 powers of the Constitution give him until the 20th of January. That community is in a way waiting for direction from their leader, from whom they have really a deep bond and a love.
So let's talk a little bit about specifically how that might play out. I mean, you've got the powers of the presidency and you've got the powers of a devoted base of followers. How do the people you're talking to, and again, these are military intelligence administration people, how does that play out in a way that troubles them?
Well, think of it as a left hand and a right hand. With his right hand, he has the powers of the government. That means federal forces to quell demonstrations. That means bringing law and order and maybe even activating National Guards in various states, Article 2 powers. On the other hand, he has real direction over an enormous array of people who might be at the source of a significant amount of chaos, demonstrations, protests, and all sorts of things that really may change the landscape of states. For instance, if Trump goes out, as people are expecting, to do stadium shows in the next couple weeks, 100,000 people, 50,000 people cheering, whipped into a frenzy by their leader, who then has the option to say, either I will cut you loose or I'll tell you to stand by or stand down and stand by. That's an enormous amount of power he retains.
Devil's advocate here. I hear all the concerns you're expressing and that these people are expressing, but is it possible that we're not seeing something larger going on, that this could simply be the tail end of an administration headed by a man who simply doesn't want to get up power? He's firing some people, and that it may not end up being anything more than just that?
It could be. But one thing that I think is important to keep focused on is that those folks deeply committed to Donald Trump, some portion of that 72 million who voted for him, he is taking that with him. He's not giving them up. We could be in a situation where the Biden presidency is in a day-to-day conflict for ratings with a man who I would not fight on a ratings landscape in any day. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. He is a master of that terrain. That's what I think is going to be so interesting, and maybe what's frankly so unsettling about the years that we certainly will have ahead of us. What will Trump do with the power he's already accrued and is likely not to be giving up? All those people who say, he's my guy. And I don't see anyone necessarily replacing him in the Republican array. He's got a special bond that he's developed with them. And I don't see anybody essentially taking that from him. It's his to own and his to use. How he'll use it, that's what we're all watching.
All right, Ron Suskind, always good to have you. Thank you very much.
Great to be with you, William.